So I think the real winner of the draft was defensive coordinator Nick Rallis. And I think, Dani, he's been the real winner this entire offseason, considering the additions in free agency and now 6 of your 7 draft picks here over these 3 days centered on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, offensive coordinator Drew Petzing over the years has had his fair share of attention, with Paris Johnson Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr. and tight end Trey McBride becoming the highest paid tight end in NFL history. So Petzing has had his players. This was defensive coordinator Nick Rallis' time to shine, though. I mean, 6 of the 7 draft picks for the Cardinals on the defensive side of the ball, not even taking into account all the defensive acquisitions and free agency. It's very clear that was the side of the ball that they really wanted to fortify this offseason. Now, not necessarily going into the draft specifically, which General Manager Monti Ossenfort did specify in his post-draft press conference, which he held with Assistant General Manager Dave Sears. They didn't go into this draft saying, okay, we're really only going to focus on defense, and if it falls with an offensive player, we'll do that. That's not how it works. It's how the board fell. But it's a good thing that I think the Cardinals ended up really focusing on defense, Paul, given how last season shook out.
Well, guys, we give out the coveted Rex Ryan Award for winning the offseason. And, in years past, we've given it out to a certain team. Rex Ryan, of course, as head coach of the Bills, declared we won the offseason. Then they won 4 games and he got fired. So we give out the winning the offseason award, but maybe for the first time ever, we should give it to an individual. To your point, Craig, Nick Rallis, maybe we should just hand him the hardware instead of an actual team in the offseason.
The hardware, since I want to make sure that everyone knows that is watching Cardinals Cover 2 presented by Hyundai, Cardinals Cover 2 presented by Hyundai, proud partner of the Arizona Cardinals, that for those watching, we actually do have a prop.
It's an official draft hat.
Is this the gift or this the honor, the trophy that you're giving to Nick Rallis?
How'd you get your hands on a draft hat is my question.
Where do you think I spent the first round of the draft, Dani? Out at the draft party.
That's fair.
Okay,
That's fair.
the merch is in abundance.
Were you given one or did you just kind of borrow one?
Craig, when I tell the fans it's all access at the draft party, all access because we're giving them coverage like Dani's one-on-ones outside the draft room, well, there's other types of all access, if you will.
5-finger discount? Paul Calvisi?
I'm just,
what else you got back there, Paul?
Don't check the paperwork or the expense report, okay? It's for the sake of the show, for Pete's sake.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Well, speaking of the show here,
what are you guys, the IRS? Saturday. Let's go.
Let's run down the 4 picks that were made on Saturday. 4th round with the 115th overall selection, Cody Simon, inside linebacker out of Ohio State. In the 5th round, yes, as Monty joked, or maybe didn't joke, he got the shakes because he hasn't made a trade yet. So in the 5th round, he did deal and since, I think along with some help from Dani over there to kind of pair that acquisition with the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, enough time
spoken
has passed.
into existence. Okay.
Dealing the 152nd pick to the Cowboys for 174 and a 6th round selection. And with that pick in the 5th round, it was Denzel Burke, cornerback out of Ohio State. 6th round, Hayden Conner, offensive lineman, Texas. In the 7th round, number 225, Kitan Crawford, safety out in Nevada. So again, 3 out of the 4 defensive players, and we can go one by one here, Paul, as far as who you want to focus on, or is there someone out of these 4 that really stands out?
I want to focus on the trade real quick.
Okay.
Because, yes, Monty, and it was a good joke. I started to get the shakes. I had to pull a trade. He had earlier offers, like he told us after day 2, and he said, you know what, access denied. I'm sorry. He gave teams a Heisman. Nope, we're going to stick in pick. But there he was. And the Cardinals traded 152 to Dallas in exchange for 174 and 211. I'm like, okay, you know what? I like that. Until I didn't like that. Because all of a sudden, Torrey Horton was on the board at 166, 6'2.5", 196, a real playmaking receiver out of Colorado State. 4'4", 140. I'm like, man, Cardinals could have used that guy. And then all of a sudden, 171, Miles Frazier, the 4-year starter at guard for LSU. And I'm thinking, oh, man. But then I took another turn. Craig, I can be somewhat pliable on draft day. When they found Hayden Conner in round 6, because they wanted a round 6 pick, and Hayden Conner was still there, and he started the last 43 games at Texas. And I mean, This is a large human being, 6'6", 314. There's video of him blocking way downfield for Bijan Robinson. He has a high football IQ. I mean, I'm just going to say this right now. You guys, you know what? I was going to wait a little later, but I think you guys, it's been a long weekend. It's been a long day. You need a little boost. You guys need a hot take right now.
Already? Okay, sure. We need something to energize the room here on this late Saturday afternoon.
A year ago, the stinking Rams took a 6th-round offensive lineman out of Arkansas by the name of Bo Limmer. You're like, who the heck? You should know Bo Limmer. He started 14 games for the Rams last year. He beat out a highly paid free agent. He is their starting franchise center right now out of round 6. I look at Hayden Conner, and I know what he told the media. He said, you know what, I'm humble enough to play anywhere they want me, but I'm confident enough to think I could come in and compete to start. And if you're telling me that Hayden Conner, who has started 43 straight games at left guard, there's a smattering of games he played center there as well, if he comes in and he doesn't give Evan Brown a real run, I could definitely see that happening. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, still a big leap. I know he played at Texas. He played a lot of playoff games, but this kid is really mature, and he has all the measurables.
What stood out to Ossenfort and Sears playing those handful of games at center is the fact that Conner did it in the middle of the game and then the following game. So it wasn't a situation where he had an entire offseason to work on multiple positions. That was something he was able to be versatile enough to plug and play. And while Conner called himself a 5-position guy, it's pretty clear that the Cardinals like him in an interior spot, which is great. I love bringing in some competition. And offensive linemen typically at any point in the draft, with the exception obviously of first round, it typically takes some time for them to adjust to the size and the speed and to put on a little weight. So I like bringing in competition. I have no problem that draft came in the 6th round. Hayden Conner was teammates with a couple of Cardinals at this point. At Texas, tackle Christian Jones, they were Longhorns together. And actually, the Cardinals' 7th-round pick, safety Kitan Crawford, out of Nevada, played his first 4 years at Texas. So there's already some connection there with them. And in 2024, Conner did not allow a single sack. And fun fact, he was actually drafted on his birthday, which is pretty stinking cool.
Yeah. And a week after he got married.
Yeah.
What a month.
Yeah. And you know what? And I love the Cardinals tweet that went out in conjunction with this pick. They just tweeted out, all right, all right, all right. Little Matthew McConaughey action. I thought that was pretty well done. Don't know whose idea that was, but that's a double ding.
Danny, you mentioned playing center in the middle of the game. Well, Monty mentioned it wasn't just any game. It was during the playoffs. And I think that stood out to me as far as, yeah, you are a solid left guard your entire career. But in the middle of the playoffs, you get kicked inside to play center because of an injury. And I'll have to go back and look because in the playoffs, Ohio State did face, or I should say Texas did face Ohio State, who now is the position coach for the Arizona Cardinals in that offensive line room. Justin Fry was at Ohio State. And regardless if it was a center or guard thing, and yes, it's the same side of the line of scrimmage, but what did Coach Fry see out of Hayden Conner during the playoffs as far as, yeah, we've got someone who's got guard ability, but also in a pinch, if you got a uniform on game day, we've got a role, and that's either at guard or center.
What is the buzzword for offensive linemen around the league? Versatility. So that is a key when looking at that position room. And for all the animal lovers out there, you will love Hayden Conner. He and his wife have a PAWS, P-A-W-S, Paws for a Cause, a charity that helps dogs find homes.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Do they help dogs lose weight?
I don't appreciate the slandering of Cheeto.
I'm just asking for a friend. By the way, the Scanner report says that he's above average as a run blocker. Ding. And then here's the other thing. He played really well against Michigan when he had to go against Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. So, I mean, if you're trying to judge whether a guy is NFL ready, it certainly helps when you put on some film and go, okay, let's see how he did against the 5th pick in the draft, the 13th pick in the draft. I mean, some of the best guys in this year's draft, and you have film. How did your 6th round pick fare? Now I understand why that trade was pulled. So that was a full circle as to why I didn't initially like the trade, but now I do.
Are you foreshadowing a play call of Conner blocking for Conner?
Well, yes, there is that video of him downfield for Bijan Robinson, so why not James Conner? You're right. I like that. Speak that into existence as well, Dani.
And why not highlight here off the top the one and only offensive player that heard their name called by the Arizona Cardinals during the 2025 NFL draft, but is an intriguing player based off what we perceived to be the need along that interior, and specifically right now, who's playing right guard? Or is it Evan Brown on the right side and you're kicking Hayden Conner to left because that's where he has the experience?
I appreciate the excitement and the optimism. This is still so early.
Yes.
I mean, Isaiah Adams has an entire offseason as a rookie, an entire year learning the system, played a significant amount of snaps at right guard last year, is going to have an entire offseason this year. It doesn't feel fair to say that 6th round pick Hayden Conner is coming in and automatically vying for a starting role. Is it possible? Yes, but I don't want to take away from the fact that, okay, we'll just move Evan Brown to the right and then Hayden Conner is going to step in on the left. You still got to give some props to Isaiah Adams there.
Yeah, and I still want to see what Isaiah Adams looks like right now. Based on the intel I've gotten out of the weight room, because the Cardinals players have been around for about a week or so at this point, Darius Robinson definitely put on some muscle mass. That's what I'm hearing. Isaiah Adams, I'm curious, because I do think he is a sleeper in this offseason. And then, look, somebody brought it up with Monti just moments ago about what's the possibility of now the next wave of free agents, right? There are still some veterans still out on the street between now and training camp. Is a Will Hernandez still a possibility? No idea. Is there another veteran guard out there who might come in on a prove-it deal? Sure. I mean, that's – now, look, there's certain rooms I don't think you're adding to because you have about 37 corners right now. I think you've reached maximum capacity in the cornerback room before the fire marshal shows up. But in terms of a guard, maybe, just maybe.
Don't be dramatic. It's what, 18 cornerbacks?
I think it's 12, actually.
12?
No, I think it's 12.
Well, it's 18 defensive backs, but 12 cornerbacks.
So don't be dramatic,
currently
Paul.
on the roster.
All right.
I was going to save this for later, but speaking of that room, you look at now 3 drafts worth of General Manager Monti Ossenfort. 28 total picks, including the 7 in this year's draft. 9 have been defensive backs, including 7 cornerbacks in 3 drafts. So, again,
wow.
When he got here, what did he see currently on the roster and where a upgrade needed to be made? Because you look 9 of 28, that's definitively one-sided. Now, again, you got to be true to your board, and I get all that, but you're also going in needing how do we best replenish something, and it's free labor right there as far as the draft because they have no choice. Free agency, the player has the choice. In the draft, the team has the choice.
Well, a couple things. Number one, you have 2 real standout safeties, obviously.
Yes.
Budda Baker, one of the best in the game, headed for the Hall of Fame. And then you have Jalen Thompson, and then Rabbit, you picked up last year. So the need isn't nearly as great in the other area of the secondary. However, I also wonder, the head coach's area of expertise is corner. And maybe he's a tough guy to please when it comes to cornerback. Not only when you came in was that an area of need, but maybe JG is looking for something specific, and they've yet to find that yet. They're still searching for a JG-type corner or cornerback duo. Now, Will Johnson, if he's everything he can be, and he is fully healthy, you know what? The whole cornerback drafting parade might stop after this year. If Will Johnson is that dude for the next decade, and there's real evidence he could be, then you know what, Craig? You throw a bunch at the wall and you see what sticks. Will Johnson could be the guy who sticks.
And a second cornerback added on Saturday in the 5th round, Denzel Burke, corner out of Ohio State, local kid, went to Brophy and Saguaro High School. Someone that maybe is not the prototypical corner that we've seen this team add because he's 5'11", 186, but Dani, a 4-year starter, 4 career interceptions, 27 passes defensed, and was only called for 1 penalty this past season. So he plays disciplined football.
Clean, disciplined football. He had a big role on special teams, so I'd imagine that is something that helps him stand out as well. And he was training with Cardinals cornerback Star Thomas. So a little bit of an Arizona connection there as well. I think based on the conversation we've been having, is this is a position where it almost feels like he can never have enough. It feels like one of those positions for this defense. And the fact of how this coaching staff, how this front office likes to develop cornerbacks, what they ask of the secondary. So this makes sense to me, especially when you're looking at the depth that was in this rookie class. So I like the pick of Denzel Burke, and I liked what Ossenfort pointed out in his press conference of, look at the guys that he has gone up against in practice alone. The pedigree of Ohio State wide receivers in the last couple of years, including Marvin Harrison Jr. That is something that absolutely stands out, Paul. It's almost like a prerequisite at this point of Max Melton, Denzel Burke, Will Johnson. If you can go up against Marvin Harrison Jr., you can be a Cardinal.
What's that old coaching cliche? And there's a lot of truth to it. If we can make practice tougher than the games, right? I mean, we're talking about practice. Man, Allen Iverson around here. Think about the names. So if he was a freshman All-American, and he was in 2021, just off the top of our head, because we talked about this with Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, think of all the receivers that have recently come through Ohio State. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams before he went to Alabama, Jackson Smith and Jigma, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka. I mean, think of the dudes. They're all first-round picks. There's literally a half dozen of them that he's gone against in his Ohio State career in practice.
It's the competition that Monti mentioned in practice. It's also the competition on game day. Big Ten, SEC, we're seeing big programs being selected as far as players coming out of big schools, and it does matter. It doesn't mean that they're the better players. It just might mean that they're better prepared for the NFL because of the talent that teams are looking to add to their own team. They're dipping into the SEC, they're dipping into the Big Ten, and now all of a sudden it's the adjustment. The leap is not nearly as big for some of these juniors or seniors to come to the NFL.
That was an interesting answer by Dave Sears when he was asked about the development of the cornerbacks room, specifically of having youth and players to develop and then having experienced players in that room, in a room that is pretty young around this league here in Arizona. And Sears said pretty much they are still getting experience when they're coming from programs like Ohio State or Michigan, when you are playing under bright lights, you are playing under stressful situations, and you are playing against very good competition. Doesn't equate to playing in the NFL, obviously. It is still very good experience, and mostly mentally, of you're not going to come in and be a deer in headlights when you're going up in practice or you're in a game going up against that type of speed and power that these type of players are seeing in college on a regular basis.
He started 51 games at Ohio State. Think about that. 51 games he started. So to Dani's point, he's not going to walk in and have to go against Puka Nacua or, Jackson Smith and Jigma. Oh, yeah, JSN. Yeah, we did a couple years, at Ohio State together going against each other. So, he's equipped at least mentally. And I liked when he met the media, he said, my best football is still ahead of me. You need that in a corner. You need the supreme confidence. Whether it's true or not, I don't care. You better have the mindset as a corner because you're going to lose, you're going to get beat, and you can't be defeated mentally. You got to be ready to battle.
One round earlier, it was Burke's teammate, Cody Simon, inside linebacker, who was the selection. We talk about positions as far as that might be up in the air, as far as, hey, we see a vacancy sign perhaps, and we hear Monti say, Cody ran that Ohio State defense. He was the quarterback on that side of the ball, and I thought it was fitting that Mack Wilson Sr. made the announcement in Mexico and then later tweeted out, got my rook. So you have a mentor and a rookie. And again, now that is a big jump to have someone come from college to the NFL to be your quote-unquote green dot, if you will. But I do like 6'2", 235, awarded the Block O jersey in this past season, which is highly significant for Ohio State, team captain. And I think someone that's going to come in and be given every opportunity in that inside linebacker room. Again, another loaded room, if you will, as far as how you see things shuffling out.
But you know what? We have no idea at this point who's wearing the green dot and who's calling that defense. And maybe it's TBD. Maybe it is to be determined. I don't think Mack Wilson Sr.'s going to be that guy. I think they like the option of using his athleticism off the edge in packages because he can be a really effective pass rusher, and you saw Nick Rallis take advantage of that last year. So I'm guessing it's, Cody Simon might have a chance to vie. I mean, you have to show a lot, and it's hard to show in the preseason because it's so vanilla. You get to the regular season, and the Sean McVays and Kyle Shanahans of the world can make you look really bad when you're seeing that kind of stuff for the first time. But when he was asked to list his strengths, and the first thing he said was instincts, that gives me great encouragement. Because, for example, you guys know I'm a fan of Jihad Campbell, and he went there, and Philadelphia came up at the end of the first round, grabbed Jihad Campbell. Well, Cody Simon isn't running the 4.5. We get that. But if you have superior instincts, you can make up for that. We saw Tyrann Mathieu do that from the safety position. He didn't run a 4.3, but he played like it because he had ridiculous instincts. And so if Cody Simon can be that guy, and he's really experienced, and he had 2 of his best games in the college football playoffs as they went to a national title. He was the defensive MVP in both the Rose Bowl and the national title game. It's really interesting, really intriguing, especially if he gets a little help back there, maybe from a Mack Wilson Sr., calling and recognizing and adjusting and audibling, reacting to quarterbacks. But at this point, to me, it's one of the biggest question marks going into camp, along with a starting guard situation. Who's your Mike backer?
Hearing Simon wore the green dot made my ears perk up because of that competition that is to come. He's been described as patient and called himself a learner. When you start to learn more about Cody Simon as a person, it makes sense why he was a Cardinals draft pick. And they talk so much about the culture and the type of person. In addition to being the right type of player, he was a 2024 captain, had a team-high 112 tackles, finished 12.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, defensive MVP of the Rose Bowl. But this is where it really starts to fit as a Cardinal. Big Ten Medal of Honor, which recognizes excellence in athletics and academics, and he was the Block O recipient. So he wore the number 0, which is an honor for Ohio State, and has been described to us as a pillar of what it means to be a Buckeye on and off the field, somebody who is leading in the classroom, in the community, and on the field. And that fits to a T of what this staff and front office wants to bring into this building. Somebody's going to put the team first. Simon, a 2-year starter, has a finance degree and was playing his 5th year getting his master's.
Wow. That's it. So like B.J. Ojulari being awarded the 18 jersey, right?
Exactly.
Very similar. No, that's really interesting. And then to see there's another stat that since 2012, he's one of 3 players with 100 tackles in a single season, plus 7 or more sacks and 7 or more passes defensed. Now, if there's one weakness in his scouting report, it's in coverage. He runs a 4.6. You're not going to send him down the field. He wouldn't be a guy who's going to be checking like a Trey McBride one-on-one. But how many inside linebackers can really do that? Fred Warner can't. He's proved that year in and year out the last 2 years against Trey McBride. One of the best in the business can't check Trey McBride. So that's why you have your dynamic safety room where a Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker, Rabbit, whomever would be the one maybe assigned to another team's playmaking tight end. But Cody Simon and Hayden Conner, I think for day 3 picks, they're going to be 2 guys to watch in camp.
Cody mentioned during his conference call that he spent a lot of time at the scouting combine speaking with linebackers coach Christian Garcia. And again, you have these conversations, but it's a position coach with a position, not general manager, not head coach, but speaking with the position coach, because those are the ones that are going to have their hands on these players the most. But found that a little interesting as well. Again, maybe more to get to know the person versus the player, because everyone can turn on the film and see what kind of a player you are, but it goes back to the evaluation part. But again, when you talk about positions that are kind of up in the air, and yeah, it's a day 3, which means it's going to be difficult because you weren't selected on Thursday or Friday. But I'm in agreement with Paul. I hate to say it out loud, Dani, but yeah, as far as Cody Simon and Hayden Conner, I'm going to have my eye on them come training camp.
You know what coaches can learn from working combine drills or going to all-star games, though? Even those very few interactions that might not be very long, is the player coachable. That's what they're learning. That is something that is very valuable, an intangible piece of a player that you can take away from those kinds of experiences. You can watch the tape and you can see if they can play. You can have formal meetings to test their IQ, right? You can have conversations with people in that player's building at their school, and you can get a feel for them. But when you're down on the field and you are getting hands-on experience of if that player is coachable, that's huge.
You know, in our household, I use the term know-it-all-itis. I have a couple of teenagers, and you hit high school, you think you know it all. And so every once in a while, I have to remind them, you have an acute case of know-it-all-itis right now. And if you've been decorated as the Ohio State middle linebacker, the MVP of the national title game, there, to Dani's point, there might be a propensity to feel like, I've arrived, time to get really paid in the NFL. And so, yes, that's where it's valuable, at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, where the position coach can actually interact with a player and realize, okay, is he willing to learn? Is he capable of learning? Does he feel like he's hit his ceiling? And it's like anything in any business, right? Whatever you do for a living, if you're an expert in your field, you can pretty much tell right away when you're talking to someone else if they have the aptitude to excel in your field. So when the linebackers coach is talking to Cody Simon at the Combine, I'm guessing he gets a pretty good feel pretty quickly as to whether this kid can stick.
The final pick on Saturday, 7th round selection, safety Kitan Crawford out of Nevada. A little undersized, but he runs a 4.4 140. And here's someone that, he will have to fight for a roster spot, but he might, again, it might be a little bit hyperbole here in April, but as far as college players coming into the NFL, drafted on day 3, you got to make your mark on special teams. Not a lot of college players who hear their name called have a lot of special teams experience. As Monti mentioned on Saturday, those type of players graduate from special teams. But here's someone in Kitan Crawford who excels on special teams, has a love, a passion for that side of the ball, to where I could certainly see a role on game day and a spot on the 53-man roster for someone who didn't hear their name called until the 7th round because they excel on 4th down.
Crawford still saw the field. Only 1 year as a starter at Nevada, but he played in every game the last 3 years, even when he was at Texas. Last season, 76 tackles, 3 of those for loss, 2 interceptions, 1 of them returned for a touchdown. He's got speed. His 4.41 was the 3rd fastest amongst safeties at the Combine.
Wow, nice. And he had a 41.5 vertical, right? So he has athleticism. He has the traits, right? When you get down to round 7, you're like, okay, we got to find people who have the measurables, right? Someone who has upside, has things you can't teach, like the speed and the vertical. And then to your point, Dani, really experienced in special teams. So what are the odds? Jeff Rogers sort of came into the war room. Hey guys, Drew got shut out pretty much. Well, no, you did get him an offensive lineman. How about getting me someone at the very end? And then boom, there's Kitan Crawford. And it's interesting too, because his first 4 years at Texas, he competed against the best of the best, not only in the SEC, the Big 12, but in practice. And he only had 4 starts, so I'm guessing he felt like, my last year, I need playing time. I need a platform to show my skills. And then he had a really good year in Nevada. Boom, got himself drafted.
Yeah, that's exactly transferring to kind of get on the field a little bit more, but over 1,000 snaps on special teams. I mean, I don't know many college players, again, who get drafted have that kind of a resume coming into the league, knowing that in order to get on the field, you're going to have to play special teams before you play anywhere else.
Absolutely. And that's something that is easy to tell on tape whether or not you have that pride and that passion, because not every player will play with that on special teams. And so if you can go out there and you can give it your all, it shows very clearly on special teams. And that is what coaches want to see, is that even though you might not be making the star play on offense or defense, you're going out there and doing what it takes for your team to be competitive and win.
And there's one other thing that Denzel Burke, the 5th rounder, and Kitan Crawford, the 7th rounder, have in common, and that's fierce tacklers, run support. That's considered a strength for both guys. And you know what? If you want to play for JG, you better tackle. And so they went out and got Rabbit last year. He has a lot of those same traits, right? 4.4-ish, 40, incredible vert. But, man, he was seek and destroy Rabbit his rookie year. When he got a chance, he would light you up. And so these two DBs have a similar mentality, and you can see the sort of style of safety. the Cardinals target. It's much like a Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. That's the kind. They're not going for the 6'3", sort of long athletic safety. They're not going for that sort of Kyle Hamilton type. They're going for the more versatile, interchangeable safety. They can play in and out of the box and move all over a defense.
So you look at the 7-player draft class here in 2025, year 3 for GM Monti Ossenfort. Walter Nolan III, Will Johnson, Jordan Birch, Cody Simon, Denzel Burke, Hayden Conner, and Kitan Crawford. 6 defensive players with the one exception, offensive lineman Hayden Conner. And the question was asked to Monty about the fact that it's basically a run back. We're going to bring everyone back on the offensive side of the ball. And Monty said, no, I expect a jump. There are guys that were injured last season coming back, and he basically ran through the entire wide receiver room as far as that room's not been touched at all from a year ago, and guys going into a second year or a third year, and the jump that side of the ball is expected to make coming up in 2025.
Look, a year ago, you used the number 4 pick overall on a receiver. So all these mock drafts, and by the way, the question I really wanted to ask Monty, but the day was long, the press conference was getting long, and I'm not sure I would have gotten it. I wanted to sort of mess with them a little bit and say, so can you tell us now, in hindsight, when you needed a good laugh, did you pick up a mock draft? Because that's what it really looks like. How many mock drafts had receiver going to the Cardinals?
Too many.
Yes, and so once again, to Craig's point over here, Marvin Harrison Jr. went number 4 overall. You brought back Zay Jones. You just re-signed Greg Dortch, who was used much more in those last 2 games. Maybe the Cardinals stumbled upon something that they're sort of like we brought up Sean McVay giving Tutu Atwell $10 million. What? 4 touchdown catches in 4 years? And Sean McVay said, no, that's on me. I got to figure out a way to get more out of Tutu Atwell. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals are looking at themselves as a coaching staff saying, we got to get more out of Greg Dortch in terms of production. Michael Wilson, I think we all saw last week when he met the media, he's got a certain look in his eye. He wants to be a lot more productive, at least in the box score. Give me the ball, give me some more targets. So obviously, based on the offseason to date, they feel pretty comfortable with the wide receiver room.
Roster as we sit here right now stands at 86. That does include Bernard Seikovits. So really you can add as many as 5 to get to that 90-man limit. You can go more, but then you'd have to subtract someone on your roster. And yeah, there'll be some undrafted free agents that get signed. Now the question is, Dani, as far as what positions those might be targeted. Monty did hint at offensive line. Certainly makes sense. But if there are no running backs or no wide receivers or tight ends, then you can just go in and say, all right, these are our guys, which are our guys from last season. Figure it out.
For now. I mean, you got to remember, we're going to get to training camp, and cuts are going to start happening. And so there's going to be a wave of players that are going to become available that the Cardinals might have been interested in. They just couldn't get their hands on them quickly enough. So there's no stress or worry if you feel like the Cardinals absolutely need help at wide receiver, and one of the few undrafted rookie free agents that they sign is not a wide receiver. I mean, things can change drastically in the next couple of months. But it will be interesting to see who they've had their eye on and who did not get drafted, and what positions and players they're targeting right now.
In a year ago, they sort of changed their philosophy. Because they had a 12-player rookie class, draft class, and they really went quality over quantity. Instead of signing, 10 or 12 different undrafted guys, they sort of took that pool of money. They gave a little more money to fewer guys, tried to target, more highly sought-after type undrafted free agents, but they've been successful in finding guys, whether it's Starling Thomas, Elijah Higgins, Amari DiMercato. So I am curious to see what they're able to pull off the street and what position groups those come into.
So we feeling pretty good?
Tired, but good.
All right, well, here's my gift. Since Paul brought the hat, this is my gift to the two of you.
Oh, boy.
Take Sunday off. I'll see you on Monday morning.
Really?
Great.
By the power not vested in you.
How generous.
You can take Sunday off. Okay. All right.
It's a good day to rest, is it not?
Paul, you didn't ask in the press conference when we were talking about linebackers, David
Yeah.
Collins move.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was asked by someone, and
you need to wait till like training camp.
yeah, it was a non-answer to the question, and so I sort of
There were a lot
figured-
of non-answers to
So
some questions.
I figured, well, I could ask that in a different way, but I'm guessing I'll get the same non-answer. But yeah, that's to be determined. Also, the head coach wasn't out there. If the head coach was out there, really, it's more his domain, really, the depth chart. So we'll see. We'll see. All I know is what we talked about after round 2 is when you go into day 3, you try and target maybe some of the bigger programs, the blue bloods, and you try and find guys who were 4- and 5-star recruits who went into Ohio State and Texas and Michigan and Georgia. And I think that's a really good philosophy, and you definitely saw the Cardinals follow that on day 3 this year. Let's go into the best of the best, see who started, who was able to earn a starting spot for 2, 3, 4 seasons in a row. There's got to be something about that guy that's going to be worth a round 6, round 5, round 7 pick. And I think you see that in how the Cardinals finished up this draft.
7 new Arizona Cardinals players. For more information on each of the 7 and the draft class as a whole, go to azcardinals.com, and we'll get more and more knowledge about these new players in the coming days and weeks to come. We've got rookie minicamp just right around the corner. But until then, how about we put a lid on this edition of Cardinals
lid.
Cover 2?
Speaking
Literally,
of lid,
a lid here as Paulie.
Speaking of lid, it's like the big hat. You know the big hat the fans have? Here we go.
It doesn't fit, Paul. It really doesn't fit.
You
at
said
all.
lid, Craig.
Paul,
Let's go.
stay still.
Put a lid on it. No,
Yeah.
don't do that. Don't do that. Cut it. No, we're off air.
Special
Doesn't
thanks
count.
to everyone out there,
count.
and
All
the
right,
show is
here
done.
we go. Okay.
Special thanks to everyone behind the scenes, our executive producer, Jim Alejandro, our associate producer, Cody Fincher. Special thanks to Alex Greenberg as well, this entire draft run. For Dani Sureck, Paul Calvisi, I'm Craig Grialou. We will talk to you next time here on Cardinals Cover 2.